Thank you very much, and thank you also for the invitation to this very interesting meeting conference. Thank you to the speakers that spoke before me, and they were all interesting interventions. And would like also, first of all, to come back to what Lorenzo was saying and highlighting before at the beginning of this panel, when he was saying that we are also here talking about the aspects in concentration of the market in the media. We are. You were saying also that the situation is worsening probably, and so I would like to highlight some aspects from the economic point of view to see whether this is true or not, and why, and especially what can be considered the impact of the new media, because of course pluralism is a concern since many years, but the technological change that is happening now in the media is changing the landscape so dramatically, and it's worth to put again the same question: is media market concentrated? Are new technologies helping? Should we be concerned about pluralism even in the digital era, in the online media era? Well, I will start from a very brief notes about what characterizes media economy. Media economy is characterized by a high level of barriers to entry. That means that you need a lot of money to set up a business in media, of course. A high initial cost, and as well as by low marginal cost. That means that if you want to add a viewer or a reader to your TV channel or to your newspaper, it doesn't cost. It costs a very low amount of money, or no money at all. And of course, with large economies of scale. These brought media enterprises and outlets to vertical and horizontal integration, merging the production and distribution levels. For example, let's think about what majors, for example, do in cinema, and managing also TV channels in the US, for example. And the horizontal integration means that merging different activities or different platforms to distribute the same content, so being present in different parts of the value chain of the product. Well, all this is changing, of course, with the advent of the online and new media, because new media are lowering barriers to entry, are customizing products, are creating niches for delivering products, niches that are of course more homogeneous, so you can address a more specific target and tailored target, but at the same time this is also dispersing the audience and making more difficult for media outlets to find profitability, because of course it will be more difficult to overcome even if the initial cost is lowering, it is difficult to recover the initial investment. So we have on the one hand we have all these characteristics, peculiarities of media economy and the impact of technological change. And so the question is, are markets more concentrated than before, and so are we having less pluralism and less diversity in the media now, or are they less concentrated, and so are we facing a golden era, as some scholar and some critics said? We have a golden era because we never had so many sources of information. Well, I don't know what is your answer. Maybe it would be interesting to know whether you think that we have now more pluralism because we have, of course, more sources of information, or should we be concerned as well? Well, an interesting theory that is worth to mention here is the one of Elie Noam, when he says that if barriers to entry lower, but economies of scale don't decrease as well, this will bring, of course, in a first stage, we bring more contestants in the market. That is exactly what is happening, for example, with the internet. We have a lot of internet websites, but also what happened with the digital terrestrial television in many markets. We had a multiplication of digital channels, but this is especially in the first stage. In the second stage, many of these channels struggle to find their profitability, and then they are, in most of the cases, they are forced to go out of the market because they're not able to find their sustainability. So if we don't have at the same time a decrease of the barriers to entry and a decrease of economies of scale, the risk is to have a more concentrated landscape than before. So it is true, of course, that online media are bringing a large amount of information and are multiplying the sources of information. But this does not mean that we don't need to be concerned about some dynamics that are happening in the market. And I've tried to summarize the 5 main concerns that are determined by the advent of online media, and 5 concerns about what is happening in diversity and pluralism in the online media era. Well, first is a question related with the relevant markets. So, what are the markets in the online media? We will see then one by one. A second question is about the level playing field, so the rules that apply to different operators, offline and online. A third one is about the so-called dynamic of the winner takes all. And the fourth one is about the low investment in new content, and the fifth about the geographical origin of players. Well, the first one about relevant markets. We mean in economy, relevant markets is the market where the thresholds and the concentration is measured, applying the thresholds. So when we talk about internet and the media delivered on the internet, it is quite difficult to say where are the boundaries between the different markets. So and also to define the so-called substitutability criteria. So do I, for example, consume news on the internet instead of consuming news on a newspaper? So, or is the internet substituting the TV news consumption? This is a very important question, because when we have to say if, for example, Google is in a dominant position in the advertising market, we should be also sure of what we mean by when we say advertising market. So, do we mean the advertising as a search engine? Do we mean advertising as YouTube, for example, which is or is the advertising collected by YouTube in a competition with the advertising of the traditional TV channels? Well, this is still an open question. And for example, this chart refers to the situation in the US, of the advertising in the US. The internet advertising in the US is collected by 70% is collected by pure internet players, while 30% is online, always online advertising, but by traditional players. That is like, for example, newspapers that are online with their own websites. And, sorry. Okay. We see that there is a market that is made up by different kind and different types of operators. And here you have a map showing you the fact that the boundaries are different among them. It is not easy to say where a business ends and where the other begins. A second question is related with the level playing field. So we have different online and offline operators, but rules that apply to these operators are different. So, for example, in telecommunications, we have operators that provide the same phone and messaging services that can be only over the top or provided by the traditional telecommunication operators, and the same is with the content delivered, for example, through YouTube or by the traditional TV channels. So we have a different regulation for these kind of players. Why? Because the over the top are considered intermediaries. They are not considered content providers, as Elda was saying before. So we of course need to pay attention to this different regulation. I try to go a bit faster because I see that we don't have so much time. So third one is about the winner takes all. So the fact that in online businesses, such as, for example, the social networks or the search engine market, there is an increasing concentration. See what these charts show you, the trend of Google and Facebook overcoming their competitors, Yahoo and MySpace, and you see that there is. It seems that there is no place for two players in the same market. And fourth, the low investment in new content. So these new players are intermediaries. They are not so much interested in investing in new contents. Otherwise, they will be considered content providers. Traditional players don't have the economic resources to invest in new content, and this makes that we have more spaces, there is more room to distribute content, but this does not mean that there is more investment and there are more economic resources. And the fifth concern, and the last concern will be is about the geographical origin of these players. I think that all of you noted that all the new players, all the new operators in the market are not European operators. I mean, Facebook, YouTube, well, the ones that used to be have been acquired, such as Skype, that has been acquired by Microsoft. So it seems like Europe is not able to compete on this new market with the mostly American, US-based players, and so Europe has a lot of used to protect its own industry, as Elda was highlighting before, through the Audiovisual Media Services Directive, and creating an harmonized legal framework to also protect the European media industry. Though all these framework seems not working very well with this changed landscape. So to wrap up and conclude my intervention, I would like to underline that a greater diversity on the supply side does not correspond to a greater diversity on the demand side. So there is no an automatic pluralism. More pluralism is not an automatic consequence of the increased space that is given by new technologies, and also that the fragmentation. And here is a very important point about the unified market. So the fragmentation of the European media market does not go in favor of makes the EU industry more vulnerable in the globalized media landscape. So these are my conclusions, and thank you for your attention.
Well, I tried to mention in the morning that our European Citizens Initiative has a vision, which means, or an ideology, that we do not try to fight against the European institutions and the European elites, but we think that we are in alliance with many politicians, officials, and experts, legal experts, and others. And I'm just wondering whether actually Lorenzo and Giovanni, you agree with this idea. We never discussed it so deeply. But I mean, in case the European Commission has changed a little bit its attitude to the media situation in the member states in general, as both of you talked about it, especially Joe, and there are arguments regarding the competence of the European Union, and even the economic situation shows that there is a need for more media pluralism. So can we really trust in our initiative that it might be successful, even if we know that the Commission approved the initiative, but that's the first step. But what comes next? Certainly we know that some European politicians really support our initiative, like Martin Schulz, who signed it, or you mentioned Renate Weber's report, where I remember she explicitly speaks about our initiative. So I just would like to ask you whether these are just realistic hopes, or at the end something might happen which at the end will ruin our hopes when we get there at all.
Yes, so and it's also a follow-up on the end of the other session, because it seems it's part of the issue is that whether we see the European Union as a structure where we can and should move towards establishing some federalist rules to safeguard fundamental values like freedom of the press, or we don't see it that way. And I think we should do that, and obviously our initiative does that. And so my question related to that is that, and it's related to István's question as well, that we know that the European Commission proposed in the draft of the Audiovisual Media Services Directive some sort of mandatory rule to safeguard the sufficient independence of the media bodies, the media councils in the member states, and it didn't go through. So I wonder whether what was the reason for it in your view? Was it that some influential member states wanted to keep it for a national decision-making process, or worse, some member states, influential member states, so that they better keep their control? And if the second, then it's unfortunately hypocritical to criticize the Hungarian government, although of course the Hungarian government deserves full criticism of how it controls the media council. So I wonder, how do you see those strange developments in the European Union that sort of, in my view, and I close with this, turned the Audiovisual Media Services Directive into a kind of a disaster, because while the directive was extended the scope of the common European media regulation in terms of content, regulating content, at the same time it failed to include what the Commission proposed, rules that would safeguard that the bodies that implement the extended regulation of content should be certainly independent enough when they do that. Thanks.
Thank you. And William?
Thank you. I'd like to ask about the connection between media pluralism and media freedom. It struck me that Mr. Meloni spoke about the centre in Florence as the centre for media pluralism, and he didn't actually say media freedom. This, I think, was quite significant, because I observed that most of the focus has been on media pluralism. Some would say this is in danger of being a cop-out, an escape. It is easier to talk about media pluralism than media freedom. It's easier for the European Commission to listen as well. But I'd perhaps ask you or your Italian colleague actually, I think you, Mr. Meloni, actually began by saying that the Citizens Initiative started in Italy because of the problems of media concentration, so perhaps you'd like to say what is the connection between the concentration of media in the Italian case or others and the impact on media freedom. And since Elder has done the study about competencies, it is it's not a trick question, but it's a tricky question. Perhaps you'd like to make a comment.
Any other? So just quick reply to William Horsley. Thank you, William, for the question. I think you touched a very important point. And of course, Lorenzo, Giovanni forgot about the media freedom just because the name of the center is very long. Sometimes, sometimes we also have some troubles. But it is true that we also have always to be very careful about not forgetting neither media pluralism nor media freedom. I think that they are two concepts that are strictly related. Also because when we talk about media pluralism, we talk about external pluralism and internal pluralism. So in my presentation it was more about external, because when we talk about the economic aspects, of course we talk about concentration, ownership concentration, market concentration, thresholds, and so on. And this is related with the economic conditions in the market. But of course, when we talk about internal pluralism, we automatically refer to the freedom of expression, both intended with the active form and the passive form of the freedom of expression. I think that they are exactly two sides of the same coin. And also that, for example, what I was highlighting in my presentation about the conditions of the economic conditions to achieve pluralism also in the online media sector. Well, of course, in many societies, even in many European countries. There are problems also in establishing a website and express an opinion on a website. But also when in those countries, I'm pretending Italy being one of those, but I'm not even sure about. But in those countries where it is possible to open a website and open a blog, express the opinion, I think that we always have to take care of who are the listeners of this opinion. Because if we have a lot of echo chambers where everybody is free, of course, to express his own opinion, well, this is an important achievement for the society compared to many other situations. But also, if this opinion count just for me and the very strict circle of my friends, and then I have a powerful media organization that is able to invest million of euros in a blog and achieving an audience that is thousands and thousands of times larger than mine. Well, I think that then I have to reconsider my freedom of expression. I'm free of expressing my own opinion, but maybe someone is able to express his opinion in a better way than mine, and I think that this is why they are strictly related. But you are definitely right. We cannot at all neither forget the one nor the other, I think. Thank you.